All right. Welcome back to my world here on the internet. I'm your host, Moses Beauchamp Jr., coming at you with another one. Once again, welcome to Live Talk with Moses Beauchamp Jr. We're getting into this Nancy situation. Poor old little Miss Nancy, still missing. And authorities are urging for streamers to leave the Arizona area, claiming that they're hindering this case by sensationalizing everything and whatnot. I'm gonna go ahead and share this clip from Law and Crime. Check it out. Well, I don't think that my sound is coming through. What in the hell? Why isn't my sound coming through?
Take DNA evidence that they found at her home, and then you compare it to family trees and databases and hope that it can build something out that will lead you to identifying who the person is who left DNA inside of Nancy Guthrie's home. In the 2001 case out of Maryland, it did take investigators roughly a year and a half to complete this investigation, so it is not always an easy process. Now, another case where genetic genealogy had success was in the murder case involving Brian Koberger, of course, the man who killed 4 University of Idaho students inside of their home. Koberger left that knife sheath in a bed, and there was DNA on it, and investigators were able to link that sheath to Brian Koberger through a family connection. The sheriff says that high-tech companies are helping them piece together this case. He says even Meta and Apple have reached out to help. He also says that they're working with the manufacturer of Nancy's pacemaker to see if they can help track where it went. We know that it disconnected from her iPhone in the early hours of the morning on February 1st, and that is the last time on the time frame that she has some sort of contact, according to law enforcement. Law enforcement is also using what is conversationally known as a signal sniffer. It's technology that can be mounted to a drone or a helicopter, and it can try to pick up signals on the ground. Maybe it's a cell phone, maybe it's a pacemaker. So the tech is mounted on a drone or a helicopter and they have to fly very low and very slow over a targeted area. We have been told that it's not something you can use to scan an entire city, and this is relatively new technology. Law enforcement is continuing to also show up at Nancy Guthrie's home. It is unclear what they're looking for at this point. The sheriff says that we also should expect to see more operations like the one that we saw last weekend when a SWAT team raided a home and had a dramatic traffic stop within miles of Nancy Guthrie's home. They detained at least one person. That person has been released. No arrests have been made at this point, and it's also unclear what evidence they may have taken in a federally approved search warrant from that house, though the sheriff says they continue to analyze what was taken from the home. The sheriff also says that investigators continue to track down thousands of leads, and he would not characterize the case of Nancy Guthrie as cold. He wants the public to continue to submit those tips of anything they think could help in this case. The FBI is offering that $100,000 reward for information into finding Nancy Guthrie or the person or people who took her. Join us now to talk more about this case is retired FBI special agent and former prosecutor Lance Leising. Thank you, sir, for taking the time to be with us. Genetic genealogy is one of the big headlines of the day, that's what law enforcement may be turning to after the gloves and also the sample that they have, whatever it is, from inside of Nancy Guthrie's home did not match in CODIS. How confident are you that genetic genealogy can be something that potentially could break this case?
So I'm very confident in forensic genetic genealogy. I used it multiple times in cases. So I used to run the Violent Crimes Task Force here in Arizona. We solved multiple, normally serial homicide, serial rapist cases with forensic genetic genealogy. So what that is, all right, you have an unknown DNA at a crime scene. It's usually something very connected to the crime scene. So These gloves that they're finding miles away from the house, you can still use forensic genetic genealogy to try to identify whose DNA that is, but it's not tied directly to the house. Usually it's something directly at the scene when the suspect leaves DNA at the scene. That's why in sexual assault cases you see it used pretty often. So you take that unknown DNA, you run it through CODIS, hoping you get a hit. About only 4 to 6% of the population is in CODIS, so that's not very likely, although sometimes you do get a hit. That's the easiest way. But when you don't, then you take that DNA and you submit it to private sector companies that do DNA searching for family histories. And thousands of people submit their DNA voluntarily into that system in order to be connected with other family members they don't know or built a family tree for them. So you submit the unknown subject's DNA in that system and you hope to get a hit. And you don't usually get a hit on the actual subject. But what you do is you get a hit on a family member. It could be a mother or father, could be a second cousin, third cousin, even fourth cousin. It could be well removed. But what that does is it gives you a suspect list. You create a family tree then from the known relative, and somewhere in that family tree, you've got the DNA owner that is now tied to the scene. It's like pulling a suspect out of thin air. When it works, it's amazing. It does work with the right type of DNA connected to the right place at a scene. So I'm confident if they have that, it can work.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see some of those cases. I know people have talked about Brian Koberger and how it was used in identifying him out of Idaho. I mean, it's just, fascinating technology. As far as the time it could take, if they were to start doing this now, whatever the sample is, the piece of evidence where they have DNA that is not Nancy Guthrie's from her home, and they say, okay, we're going to use genetic genealogy now, like what's the first step and how long, especially in a case like this that's high profile, that it could take to get some of the results back?
Yeah, it's submitting them to multiple different private companies that do that just as a customer, really, is how they're submitting it. Nothing special, no warrant needed, so there's no delay there because it's all volunteer DNA into these systems. Then it depends on how close you are to a match to the suspect. It really depends on how quickly you can then build that family tree and solve it. If it's a fourth cousin, you've got a lot of work to do there. And that suspect, that list, the family tree could be dozens and dozens of people. But then you do basic investigative steps to narrow that down. Who's living in the right areas, whose physical description matches. Likely you can exclude a lot of the females from there because at least the individual seen in the surveillance photograph was unlikely to be female. So you can whittle that down pretty quickly. Time frame, I would normally say a couple of weeks. It would take one of our cases maybe to find a solution. Here, you've got a lot more investigators, a lot more resources going at this case than you would a typical case. So